Well, hello there, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're safe and well. In this video, I'm going to be looking at an alternative method for setting up your scope for HFT shooting. But don't worry if you don't shoot HFT, I think you'll still find this quite interesting. So let's go, shall we? Roll the titles. So what's this one all about then? Well, if you've seen my video number 70 about scope rings, you'll know in there that I discussed the benefits or the effects of raising and lowering the height of the scope and how that apparently affects the positioning of your aim points, both at shorter and longer shots. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Well, anyway, in response to that video, I received a comment from a viewer using the username Mr. Tench 8. And at the back end of that comment, he said the following. Something else you can explore is aim points. Try this. Zero your rifle on the crosshair at 25 yards, then shoot a 15mm kill on the crosshairs at every distance up to 25 yards, and a 20mm up to 30 yards, then a 25mm beyond 30 yards. Note at what distance you start to get the pellets into the kill on the close targets, and at what distance you start to drop out of the kills at longer distance. Then change the zero so the pellet lands 1/4 of an inch below the crosshair at 25 yards, and do the same shooting test again, but place the horizontal of the crosshair on the top edge of the kill for all of the shooting. This method of zeroing and aiming will add a few yards at both ends without having to hold over. Well, that sounded quite interesting to me, and I replied back saying, oh, you know, I'll have to check that out and make a video. And somebody else then immediately commented saying, yeah, please give that a go. So basically that's what this video is about. So what I've done is I've created a target specially to do this test, which is what you can see here. Let's look at the details. It's based on the UKAHFT rules. I've changed things slightly because the at 8 yards the largest target is 20mm and not 15mm. I've put 20mm targets or 20mm circles up to 12 yards. And then 13 yards is the closest that you can have a 15mm. So then from 13 to 25 yards, I put 15mm circle targets. And then beyond 25 yards, we go back up to 20mm, up to a maximum of 30 yards. And then beyond that, I've done 25mm targets up to 40 yards. So that's how the target's set up then. Just to be sure, the way that I've done these targets or using the desktop publishing, the diameter is to the outside edge of the circle, not the inside edge of the black line. So anything inside the outside edge of the black circles will go in the kill. So that's the target then. Just to clarify what we're going to do then, I'm going to shoot the same target twice. The first time I'm going to shoot every target with the crosshairs as near as I can get it in the center of the target. Then I'm going to re-zero so that at 25 yards the pellet drops 1/4 of an inch, which is about 7mm below the zero. And we're going to shoot the targets again, but this time we're going to put the crosshairs on the top edge of all the targets and see the difference. Right, I'm set up in the shooting in the conservatory, as you can see. That gives me a maximum of 40 yards. It's very cold today. What's the temperature on here? Yeah, it's showing about 5 or 6 degrees in here in the conservatory, so that's sort of like same temperature in the cool racks in the supermarket. So it's not warm. Staying out of the breeze, because with the breeze outside it's even colder. So I've got a bit of a breeze at the moment, which is going to interfere with things, but we are mainly concerned about elevation and the pellet elevation. So as you can see, I've got the trusty S400 out with my Arken EPL4 scope. I'm using exact Diablo 8.44s. To make sure that it's fair, I've sort of the test is sort of fair. I've charged up to 175 bars, measured out 40 pellets before I sort of recharge, because that will give me a fairly sort of straight run of power through this rifle, from what I know of this rifle. So I've checked my zero. I've zeroed at 25 yards, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot one pellet in my target at from 8 yards right up to 40 yards, so 40 shots in total. Which is probably a bit obvious. Is it 40 shots? No, it's not 40 shots, is it? No, it's 32. 32, yeah. Okay, that's my maths. I'm usually pretty good at maths. Anyway, I'm not going to show you shot to shot because it's going to be pretty boring. I'll take all the shots, and then I'll show you the target, and then we'll move on to the next stage. So off we go then. Right, that's the first card finished then. I ended up, once I got out to beyond 20 yards, I started sort of struggling a bit with the wind, and I tried to make adjustments with the windage on the scope, and that wasn't working. So I ended up putting a wind flag out just so that I could see what the wind was doing and take my shots at the appropriate moment. But it was mucking up a few shots there. Anyway, carried on shooting until the pellets have dropped out the bottom of the target. I've been shooting at the circles in with the crosshairs in the centre of every single one, and we've got the 35 yards, and the pellets finally sort of dropped out the bottom. I did 3 shots just to check, and they're all pretty at the same level, so I know that that's valid. So what we'll do is I'll go and get the target, and we'll have a look at the target. Then I'm going to have a break for lunch, warm myself up a bit, and then come out with the second target, re-zero. I'll explain that when I put the zero out again, and we'll do the second card, and then we can make our comparisons. Here's the target I just shot then, where I aimed at the centre of each target at the distances. So you can see, starting at 8 yards, the pellet actually dropped outside the target. At 9, just caught the edge. One thing to bear in mind, that these circles are the correct diameter on the outside of the circle, not the inside, just the way that the software was that created them. So these are 20mm circles. So at 9 yards, just on the edge. 10 yards, just crept inside. I'm quite confident that that would have knocked target over at 10 yards, aiming in the centre. And then you can see 11, 12 inside. Then once we get to 13 yards, gone down to the 15mm target. It's interesting because you can see the trajectory of the pellet as it's climbing up above the zero line up to 20 yards, and then starts dropping back down again to 25, which was the zero. So in actual fact here you can see that you've actually got a near zero of roughly 17 yards and the far zero of 25. Then starts dropping down lower. You can see there's a couple of double shots here, as you saw from probably from the video, struggling a bit with the wind. So this was the first shot and was out, and I just wanted to confirm to myself that everything was okay with that, so I took that second shot. And again here at 25 yards, although that looks like it might have been a positive splitter, took the second shot, got that in. And again over here at 26. Wind blew me off to the left. I was fiddling around trying to get this sorted, and eventually I decided just to give up on the windage turret and just sort of aim off a bit. Fine along here. Again, look, got well blown off here. Made an adjustment, put that one in. Got down to 31 yards. You can see they're starting to drop down. Say beyond 30 yards, it goes up from 20mm targets to 25mm. So I was inside there. Not sure that these shots are valid. I mean, I was shooting straight into the wind, and I think on some occasions the wind was actually lifting my pellets, because when I checked with a ballistic calculator at 32 yards, this pellet should have been -11, so that should have been just on the bottom edge. This should have been -13mm, which would have taken it outside. This one here, I shot this because of these. I shot this and I thought, oh, that looks a bit low, and I shot it again and it went inside. But this was actually the valid shot, because the ballistic calculator says -16mm, which that is. And then you can see we came down here. The first shot was well low, and then I put 3 shots together with this line, so that's more valid. So probably the limit on this, if I shot it again in still conditions, 33 yards would be the furthest distance. 32 yards would be the furthest distance where the pellet would actually go in the keel. 33 yards would almost certainly be on the edge and out. So this is a little bit, looks better than it actually is. So bear that in mind for when we come to the second target and make our comparisons. So here we are back at it again then. Just re-zeroed the scope at 25 yards to drop the zero by 1/4 inch, which is roughly 7mm. If you don't understand why we're doing that, that is basically roughly half the diameter of a 15mm keel, which is the smallest keel size that you'd shoot in an HFT course at 25 yards. So basically what that means then is at 25 yards, if I now put my crosshairs on the top edge of the keel circle, the pellet should strike in the center of the circle, because there's that half a diameter drop. And it worked out that it was exactly 3 clicks down. So 3 clicks down took me down to the 7mm mark. Now the way that I did it, I did 2 parallel lines, basically aimed at a top line until I struck the line below that was at 7mm. So it's pretty easy to do. So right, now I'm going to get the second target out and do what I did the first time, but this time I will be shooting by aiming the crosshairs at the top edge of each of the circular kill targets, if that makes sense. So let's get on with it, shall we? So the new target's up. We're starting at 8 yards again. Just to point out on this, I am adjusting the focus and the magnification, because it is a practice scenario. There's no real benefit in me just leaving the scope at fixed settings. So I'm adjusting the settings to get the best view of the target, so I can get the accuracy, because it's the data or the results we're looking at, not actually just shooting with a fixed setup on the scope. So just to make that clear. So for example, here I'm shooting at 8 yards. I've got my focus set down to the minimum, which is 10 yards. And I think I had this before down to about 6 mag, so that I get the 8 yard target quite nicely in focus. So let's get at it. Well, that's all the shooting finished. Starting to lose the light, because it's starting to get dark and starting to spit with rain, and it hasn't got any warmer, so it's probably a good thing. So I'm going to pack up now, grab the target, put everything away, and then we'll take a look at the target inside in the wall. So here's our second target then. This is the one where I'm actually aiming at the top edge of the keel. So this top edge of each of these circles is my actual aim point rather than the centre like the last one. And right from the off you can see that 8 yards easily goes inside with this setup, this arrangement for your zero. The pellet easily goes inside of 8 yards. So basically we've gained 2 yards on this. And then as we go along, come back down here, the 30 yard here is on the edge a bit low, but I didn't take a second shot on that because I'm pretty certain that that would have gone in. If it hadn't have been blown by the wind, that would have been easily in. And then we come down here, and we're in at 31. Took 2 shots here. This was the first one, it was at the bottom edge, and I took this second one. And then when we come to 33, you can see that they're both in. 34 was definitely out, and I knew it was going to drop well below on 35, so I didn't bother with those. So we've probably gained 1 or 2 yards on the distant shots, but we've certainly gained on the closer shots. So here's the 2 cards side by side then. So you can see, look, the 8 and 9 possibles there, 10 probably, but even these are all quite close to the bottom, whereas if you look on this side, they're all well inside. So aiming at the top edge in this scenario is definitely more effective for those first short range shots. You haven't got to worry too much about your range finding there. Not a great deal of difference if you look between running up from 13 to 25. They're all pretty similar. And then if you go to 26 yards up to 30, all pretty similar again. I think that's probably, you know, I should have taken a second shot there. I think if I'd have taken a second shot there, that would have been sort of well in. And then we come down here to the 31 to 35. I think I'd like to reshoot those in better conditions because I think the wind was lifting the pellets here when I was shooting on this one. I think this is probably a little bit more valid, and I suspect that it will show that that aiming central will drop the pellet out at around 32 to 33 yards without any holdover, yet we here 32, 33 yards without any holdover would stay inside, aiming at the top edge. So at this stage, you're probably thinking the same as me. You know, what's the point of this? All you've done is change your zero range. But the more that I thought about it, the more that I realised that I haven't changed the zero range. Because if I've changed the zero range from 25 yards to, say, 30 yards or to 20 yards, then when I shot at that circle, aiming at the top edge of the circle, I should have hit that top edge, and I didn't. So I had to give it some thought to try and work out what was going on. So here's what's happening then. So if this line represents the line of sight of the scope, and this over-exaggerated curve line represents the trajectory of the pellet, point that they meet is our zero range, which is 25 yards. Now the reason that I and many others choose 25 yards is because this curve never goes above that line of sight of the scope, the straight line, which means that we only ever use holdovers. If it went above, you'd have 2 0 points, you'd have a near zero and you'd have a far zero, a zero at each of the points, the crossing points, which would then mean that at certain ranges you'd have to use hold unders. But zeroing at 25 yards, that's the one range where you're just limited to holdovers, so it does simplify things. So that's the situation then we've got at this case. Now when we change the scope to shoot the second target, what we've done, here's our 25 yard mark, but then once we've zeroed at that, we've adjusted the scope so that the pellet drop is below that line. So then what we've done is we've moved the whole of the pellet trajectory down So the trajectory, the line representing the trajectory of the pellet, never actually touches the line of sight of the scope line. So in effect, we don't actually have a zero range, if that makes sense. It's a bit difficult concept to get your head around, but you can see if the trajectory never touches the line of sight of the scope, then technically we don't have a zero range. Well, there you go then. That's the experiment over and done with. I'd like to thank Mr. Tench for his comment that led to this video. Very interesting results, and something that I'm actually going to try myself at the next competition. I'm going to give that a go, set my scope up that way, and see what difference it makes. Basically, what you're going to get out of it is one aim point for every target from 8 yards up to about 32, 33 yards. So you know, what's bad about that? Less things to think about. So yeah, so hope you found that interesting. I mean, I certainly did. Did confuse me a little bit to what was going on, but you know, when I worked it out, it was pretty straightforward. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next one. From me, bye for now.